Picture this. You wake up, step outside to your quiet farm with your morning coffee, and there, square in the middle of your field, sits a rusted, oil-streaked hulk of a car. Not yours, not abandoned by mistake. Parked there like a monument to someone's arrogance. That morning was when my patient finally snapped, and when a ridiculous feud that should have stayed on someone else's street exploded into my life. I live on a big patch of land just beyond a tidy suburban development. The farm's been in my family for generations. I keep it tidy, mind the fences, and respect every property line, which is why it stung when a homeowners association moved in nearby and started policing everything that wasn't theirs. The ringleader was Karen, loud, blonde, permanently annoyed, and president of the HOA. She loved sticking her nose where it didn't belong. I mostly ignored her bluster until her son showed up and took things to a new level. Tyler was textbook Karen's kid, entitled, lazy, and always angling for attention. He drove a rust bucket that coughed and wheezed like it was on its last legs every time he turned the key. It wasn't road legal, but he adored it. When the HOA began cracking down on old cars in the neighborhood, Tyler suddenly had nowhere to stash his treasure. The solution, apparently, was to plunk it down on my land, so there I was, coffee in hand on a Monday morning, staring at that sorry machine sitting crooked in my cornfield. Oil puddling into the earth, gasoline stinging the air with the chill morning dew. My jaw dropped. Who dumps a vehicle on someone else's property and calls it parking? Then Karen sashayed up my driveway, arms folded, chin tilted like she'd just delivered the world's greatest opinion. "Oh, good. You found it?" she said, all smug. "Tyler needed somewhere safe to park. Your field is empty anyway. You don't mind, do you?" Mind? It was my soil, my livelihood, and that wreck was bleeding poison into it. I told her flat out, "Move it today." Karen sniffed, flicked her perfectly lacquered hand, and said, "Relax, it's just a car. We'll leave it until we sort something out. Don't be so uptight." That was the moment I realized she wasn't asking for permission. She was announcing a fait accompli. That junker wasn't going anywhere unless I stopped it. The more I looked at the car, the hotter my temper flared. It wasn't just an ugly sight. It was an insult. Karen had marched across my property like she owned the place, dumped her son's trash in my field, and expected gratitude. I decided then that if I didn't put my foot down, things would only escalate. I called Tyler first, figured he might be less full of himself than his mother. "Big mistake," he answered with a bored, cocky laugh. "Yeah, that's my baby. Nice spot, huh? Don't worry, old man. It won't hurt your little farm." Then he hung up. That sealed it for me. That evening, Karen returned, dragging Tyler behind her. He swaggered like the world bowed at his feet, backward cap, smug grin, zero remorse. Karen didn't bother with niceties. "We've decided it stays," she declared. "The HOA won't allow cars like his anymore. Since you have no rules out here, this is perfect. You've got plenty of space. Stop being selfish." "Selfish?" I nearly laughed. They were trespassing, plain and simple, I told them again. "Move it now." Karen leaned in, queen of the block mode fully engaged, and hissed, "Try touching that car and you'll regret it. I'll have the HOA sue you so fast your head will spin." That's when the whole thing clicked. She didn't just feel entitled, she was arrogantly certain the HOA had jurisdiction over my farm. They didn't. My land wasn't under their rules. But Karen was used to browbeating neighbors into submission. She assumed threats would work here, too. For a few days, I let the wreck sit, partly to keep the peace and partly to think about my next move. Still, every time I walked past that car, my blood boiled. I noticed the oil creeping farther across the soil, spreading like a dark, ugly wound in the earth. The sight made my stomach twist. That stain wasn't just oil, it was disrespect, soaking into generations of hard work. My family's land, my crops, my livelihood, all tainted because of one spoiled kid's junk car and his mother's arrogance. By day 3, I was done playing nice. Karen had backed me into a corner, and if her son refused to take responsibility while she hid behind her clipboard threats, I'd make sure they both learned a lesson they wouldn't forget. I walked past my barn, and as I glanced at my tractor, the idea hit me like a spark catching dry straw. I wasn't going to move that car. I was going to crush it. That morning, the air was crisp and heavy with the familiar scent of dew and diesel, the kind that every farmer knows by heart. I stood at the barn door, staring at the hulking green machine waiting inside. My tractor wasn't just equipment. It was power. It was resolved steel made of steel, and that morning it became my weapon of choice. My fingers curled around the cold metal handle, and I could almost picture Tyler's smirk vanishing when he realized what I was about to do. Karen had warned me not to touch her son's car, but what could she really do? This was my land, and that rusted heap was contaminating it. I wasn't about to let some self-appointed queen of a homeowners association dictate what sat on my property. I climbed into the tractor, the seat groaning under my weight. With a deep breath, I turned the key. The engine rumbled to life, deep, powerful, unbothered, echoing across the field like a declaration of war. Slowly, deliberately, I guided it toward the car. Gravel crunched beneath the tires, each turn of the wheel pushing my frustration closer to release. It didn't take long for the commotion to draw attention. By the time I reached the edge of the field, Karen was already storming out of her house, her robe flapping behind her like a cape. Tyler stumbled after her, still half asleep, dragging his sneakers and rubbing his eyes. "What do you think you're doing?" Karen screeched, her voice sharp enough to slice through the morning stillness. "Get away from my son's car!" I didn't answer. I just kept rolling forward, the engine drowning out her indignation. Tyler panicked, sprinting to the car's side. "Yo, man, chill. That's my ride!" he yelled, his voice cracking as the tractor crept closer. For the first time, the arrogance in his tone was gone, replaced by raw fear. Karen's shouting only grew louder. "I'll call the HOA. I'll call the police. You'll be sorry." Her words bounced off me like pebbles against a steel wall. I had heard enough of her empty threats. This was my farm, my rules. I lined the tractor's massive front with the hood of the car. The sunlight caught the rusted metal, reflecting a distorted image of the machine bearing down on it. For a brief second, I paused. Karen and Tyler froze too, wide-eyed, waiting to see if I'd really go through with it. Then I pressed the throttle. The roar of the tractor swallowed everything. Metal shrieked and glass exploded like fireworks. The car folded beneath the weight, crumpling into a twisted pancake of scrap and broken pride. Tyler screamed in disbelief while Karen's face twisted in shock and fury. I didn't just crush his car. I crushed the entitlement they thought ruled my life. When the tractor rolled off what used to be a car, silence blanketed the field. The wreck was unrecognizable, a mangled, flattened mess. I sat there for a moment, heart pounding, staring at the wreckage. Then I climbed down, the ground crunching beneath my boots as I walked toward them. Karen was trembling, fists clenched, her face red with fury. Tyler had sunk to his knees, staring at the remains with glassy eyes. "My car, my car," he kept muttering, like repeating it might bring it back. Then Karen exploded. "You monster!" she shrieked, her voice cracking. "You destroyed my son's property. I'll have you arrested. You'll pay for this." She whipped out her phone, jabbing at the screen like she was stabbing it. I stopped right in front of her, calm, solid. She jabbed her finger into my chest, eyes blazing. "You're finished. The HOA will ruin you for this." I couldn't help but laugh. "Karen," I said evenly, "your HOA doesn't own me. This is my farm. You trespassed. Your son dumped a toxic wreck on my land. I gave you days to move it. You didn't. So I handled it." That was when the police actually arrived. 2 squad cars pulling up the drive, lights flashing, sirens echoing off the trees. Karen ran to them, tears and outrage on full display, shouting, "Arrest him! He destroyed my son's car!" The officers stepped out, looked at the wreck, then at me, and finally at Karen. After a long pause, one of them asked, "Sir, did they have your permission to park this vehicle here?" I shook my head. "No, they dumped it without asking. I told them several times to remove it, and they refused." The officers exchanged a glance, then turned to Karen. "Ma'am," one said evenly, "this is private property. You and your son had no right to park here." Karen's jaw fell open. But he crushed it," she stammered, waving her arms at the wreck. "Ma'am," the officer replied flatly, "it shouldn't have been here in the first place. This is, at most, a civil dispute. And frankly, you and your son could be facing trespassing charges. The color drained from Karen's face. Tyler mumbled something under his breath, still staring at the flattened ruin that used to be his car. The officers told them to leave immediately or face charges. Karen sputtered something about lawyers, but she didn't dare argue further. As they slunk away down the driveway, I finally exhaled. My field was mine again. The junker was gone. And Karen had learned a hard truth. On my farm. Her HOA rules didn't mean a thing. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more wild HOA Karen stories. Your support keeps these tales rolling.